Did you catch these Red Sox signings? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and in today's video, we're going to be going over some signings the Red Sox have made recently that you may not have heard of. We're also going to be talking about some additions to the Red Sox coaching staff as well, and how all of it could impact 2025. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give you guys a massive thank you. Last night, we reached our $1,500 donation goal towards Movember. This is just unbelievably incredible. Last year, we raised over $600 in this month. This year, we raised $1,500 in less than a month. The generosity of this community absolutely astonishes me. I'm so proud of this community that we built together, and I cannot thank you guys enough. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so I did want to start on the player side of things, and I think I want to start with the most recent additions to the Boston Red Sox, which actually aren't really additions at all, because last night the Red Sox signed both Bryan Mata and Isaiah Campbell to minor league contracts, meaning these guys aren't leaving the Red Sox system one bit. This is pretty interesting because just a couple of days ago, the Red Sox did DFA both of these guys, but were able to retain them due to a little bit of a loophole here. They non-tendered them at the non-tender deadline yesterday, basically just immediately making them free agents, and then they just pretty much immediately signed them back on minor league contracts. And I actually think this is pretty smart because, one, this means absolutely nothing for the major league roster. These aren't guys who are going to be taking up 40-man spots. These aren't guys who need to be on the 26-man roster. They are just simply in the Red Sox system. And with these two specifically, I don't think that's a bad idea. We look at Bryan Mata, who we talked about, has that still potential to be a real impactful pitcher. He just needs to stay healthy. You look at that fastball grade, you look at that slider grade, and you sit there and you say, man, there is still something there with Bryan Mata. If you can get him to a point where he's healthy enough to stay on the mound, I do think there could be some potential here. Clearly, the Red Sox agree as they're sort of unwilling to let this guy go no matter what. Isaiah Campbell, kind of in a similar boat, right? We saw some flashes of what he could possibly look like at the major league level. There was a lot of potential there at the beginning of the year. It all just sort of fell apart, especially right before he got injured, and then right after he got injured. Even in AAA, it wasn't exactly fantastic, but again, this is an absolutely no-risk signing. They're not required to be on the major league roster. They can sit in AAA or AA or wherever they end up for the entire season, and that's perfectly okay. What these two both kind of become here is the backup's backup, third-string quarterback, if you will, the guy who's most likely never going to touch the field, but it's nice to have if you absolutely need to have them, and building that out as wide as you possibly can makes for a successful season. We saw last year, injuries killed the Red Sox bullpen because they did not have the depth to sustain it. Getting these guys in here as potential depth options just gives you more options when that time does come, because injuries are going to happen in a 162-game baseball season. So I don't hate this at all. Again, there's absolutely no impact on the major league roster, and that's kind of going to be the theme of this video, because outside of those two, the Red Sox did make a couple other signings over the last couple of days. And the first one they made 3 days ago was to sign 30-year-old catcher Seby Zavala to, again, a minor league contract. This is a guy who does have some catching experience at the major league level in parts of 5 seasons with 3 different teams. He was certainly not signed for his ability at the plate, though, with a career 205 average, a 271 on base percentage, and a 342 slug for a 613 OPS or a 70 OPS plus, about 30% below league average production. What he was signed for, though, was his ability behind the dish. At the major league level, the 2 seasons he spent the most time in were 2022 and 2023. During that time, he was well above average in both blocks and framing. This makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox. One, because right now they quite literally have no contingency plan if Connor Wong is unavailable to play. Getting a guy like Seby who can sit in the minor leagues, probably worst case scenario here all season, just sort of again as a backup to a major league player, isn't a bad thing to have at all, especially a guy who has major league catching experience. And again, we talked about this before. The Red Sox defense behind the dish last year, specifically in blocks box and framing just was not very good. Connor Wong was not successful in those categories. Reese McGuire was not successful in those categories. Danny Jansen wasn't too bad, but you didn't see a whole lot of them. Getting a guy in here who is positive at those, again, isn't a bad thing to have in your system. And I just want to point out, because I know a lot of people are going to bring up the word dumpster diving with these signings, this has absolutely no impact on the Major League club outside of just simply building up depth. I do think with Sebi, there is something that is also pretty important with this signing, and that's what he could do for the development of pitchers at the minor league level. There are some important guys down there right now. Hunter Dobbins, Richard Fitz, Quinn Priester, Zach Penrod, David Sandlin at some point, most likely Peyton Toll at some point later in the year as well. To get someone in here who has major league experience catching big league guys, I think is absolutely important to their development. I also think it's important to Kyle Teel. Kyle Teel is going to start the year in minor league baseball. This is a guy, again, you get that experience, you get that successful defensive experience specifically, and Kyle Teel has a guy he can lean on and work with to really get himself ready for Major League Baseball. So I'm actually pretty happy with this signing. I think getting depth in the catcher position is really important. The last guy the Red Sox signed over the last couple of days was utility infielder Nick Eaton. He was also signed to a minor league contract, and while he's technically a utility man by trade, it's mostly outfield utility. He has played some games at third base, but it's a small sample size compared to the rest of his outfield experience. The 27-year-old doesn't have much experience in Major League Baseball, just 72 games between 2 seasons. The overall numbers, they don't look too good, especially at the plate. A 201 average, a 262 on base percentage, and a 283 slug for just a 54 OPS plus, 46% below league average production there. But in 2022, he actually did have a pretty solid bat, hitting 262 with a 103 OPS plus, 3% above league average production, 44 games from the right-hand side. Again, guys, these aren't players you're going to need to really form a major opinion on. I'm not sitting here telling you need to be super excited the Red Sox signed these minor league guys, but you also shouldn't be super upset they were signed either. With Nate Eaton specifically, I do think one thing that's interesting to point out is he had 13 other offers for minor league contracts from teams to choose from. This was a guy who is pretty highly sought after as minor league depth for major league teams, and I think that's kind of an interesting tidbit here, as there's clearly something teams like Eaton has. For the Red Sox, I don't know if this is someone who's going to make a huge impact at the major league level. I think I go back to the term the backup's backup. Last year, Red Sox had a ton of injuries at the major league level, and you ended up with guys like Jamie Westbrook, bless his heart, playing second base for this team, who just simply wasn't an adequate major league player. Now, Nate Eaton isn't exactly an adequate major league player right now, but at the same point, he does have that potential to be, and I think it raises the floor of the Red Sox if they need to break glass in case of emergency, and I think that's exactly why he was signed. Again, nothing to get super excited about, nothing to get super mad about either, and I think that's sort of the theme with all of these players. But players weren't the only additions the Red Sox made over the last week or so. The other additions were directly to the major league team in the form of coaching, so I also want to break those down as well. Okay, so yesterday the Red Sox announced their coaching staff for the 2025 season, and there are some new faces here. In fact, there are exactly 4 new faces the Boston Red Sox added to their personnel going into 2025. One of the bigger names, in my opinion, is the addition of Parker Gwynn, who is the new catching instructor / bullpen catcher. No, that does not mean Jason Varitek lost his job. In fact, Jason Varitek's kind of been upgraded to run prevention coach. He's going to oversee essentially how the Red Sox prevent runs over the next few years, and I actually kind of like that for Tech. That feels like exactly the right role he needs to be in, sort of a jack of all trades, hand in all pots. I like that role for Jason Varitek, but I also like that they're bringing in a new set of eyes for their catching situation, because again, like we talked about when we talked about Sebi Zavala, the Red Sox catching defensively last year just simply was not very good. It was actually towards the bottom of the league in a lot of different categories, so getting a new set of eyes in here, someone basically solely dedicated to improving the catching defensively on the Boston Red Sox, to me, feels like a pretty smart idea. Previously, Gwynn was with the Yankees coaching in the Dominican Summer League. He did a lot of coaching for college baseball as well, so he has some experience in the role. Outside of Parker Gwynn, you've got Chris Holt as a bullpen coach, and he's kind of a big name. He was with the Orioles before the Red Sox, and during his time with the Orioles, he actually spent some time as their director of pitching. Now, the Orioles, historically over the last few years, haven't exactly had the best pitching staff in the world, but they have developed some really interesting pitching. Felix Bautista, Cano in the back end of that bullpen, Kyle Bradish, right? There have been some interesting developments over there, specifically in the bullpen, and I think bringing in, again, a new set of eyes into an area where the Red Sox just simply weren't very good last year is always a helping hand. I'm curious to see how he sort of works with Andrew Bailey, Justin Willard, and of course, Jason Varitek now in this new run prevention role. I wonder how much say he's going to have in things. Getting some new perspective on how they can work their bullpen is never a bad thing. I think that's going to be a bit of a focus for the Red Sox this offseason. How do they improve their ability to control a bullpen from within? Well, that starts with Alex Cora, but it also means Andrew Bailey, Jason Varitek, Breslow, and Willard themselves as sort of manning this day-to-day operation that is the bullpen, because I think it points this season the efficiency of the bullpen wasn't what it was supposed to be. And I'm not just talking statistics, I'm talking in terms of how guys utilized on a day-to-day basis. So if that's going to improve under Chris Holt and just improve in general in the system, I'm all for it. And finally, the last sort of outside addition, I guess you could consider outside, is Dylan Lawson, who is coming on as an assistant hitting coach for the Boston Red Sox. Now, I say kind of outside because he did spend last year with the Red Sox in their organization, coaching players at the minor league level as a hitting coach. But before that, he was actually the head hitting coach for the New York Yankees in 22 and 23. So I kind of still consider him an outside addition to this Red Sox coaching staff. And again, well, like we talked about with these last two guys, a fresh set of eyes on the Red Sox hitting is never a bad thing. I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have with Pete Fatsi still manning the reins, which I know a couple of people aren't super excited about, but there were definitely things last season that the Red Sox could improve upon offensively going into 2025. I'm talking about the K rate here, folks. It was not very good for the Red Sox this year. So getting a guy in here who's worked with major league teams, who's worked with your minor league club, getting him in here on this hitting philosophy, never a bad thing at all. And finally, the last addition the Red Sox made to their coaching staff was actually a promotion of Jose Flores from AAA to first base coach / infield instructor. From my experience, just being in Worcester, Flores is the absolute man. He's high energy. The players love him. He really takes his job seriously. He's going to be a ton of fun in this Red Sox dugout. He also has a lot of experience coaching guys like Tristan Casas, Vaughn Grissom, Christian Campbell, Roman Anthony, even guys who spent some time rehabbing in AAA like Trevor Story or Tyler O'Neill or other players like that. So he has some experience with the current Red Sox staff. He has some experience with the current Red Sox players. I really like this promotion. Again, you're getting a new set of eyes in here. I've said that like 30 times this video, but it is truly, I think, the ultimate goal of the Red Sox is just to get new perspectives on this team. And I don't think it's a coincidence that both Lawson and Flores were promoted in a season where the top prospects the Red Sox have had in a very long time are expected to make their debuts. I think bringing these guys along who helped get them to that point up to major league level to get to be there when they get there is absolutely by design. So again, I don't know how much of an impact this is going to have on either the overall philosophy of the Sox coaching staff or actually in-game decisions, but I do think it's going to change it a little bit. Overall, taking a look at the moves the Red Sox have made recently, again, when you're looking at the players side of things, these guys aren't going to be major impact players. These guys aren't players who you should expect to get the last out of the World Series or be in the starting lineup for Game 6 of an ALCS, right? These are just simply depth pieces, depth moves that every team in Major League Baseball needs to make. From the coaching side of things, I do think it's a little bit more impactful. I think new bodies in this coaching staff could do something as we move forward into 2025. I just don't know what that's going to look like just yet, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you think of these additions? Do you like them? Do you not like him? Specifically with the coaching staff, how do you think that's going to impact 2025? As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps them out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.